where we aim to cut through the noise and get to the heart of what really matters. Today, you've asked us to plunge into a topic that, well, it affects every single one of us, often in ways we don't immediately see: fraud. We're not just talking about it as, a legal term. We want to explore it as a profound societal issue, really a foundational challenge. Our deep dive today is built around that really illuminating educational article you shared from the Human and AI Educational and Cultural Institute. It's titled "Healing Society: A Cure for Fraudulence." So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to try and unpack why fraud is just so incredibly pervasive. We'll look at the subtle, yet sometimes devastating costs it brings, and crucially, how we can maybe collectively move towards a society that's genuinely built on, well, truth and trust.
It is interesting, isn't it, how the article frames fraud in such a almost philosophical way right from the start. It lays out this core premise. Fraud isn't just a crime. It's described as a spiritual erosion, a cultural wound, and a societal malfunction. That's pretty heavy stuff. And it uses this really powerful analogy calling fraud termites in the beams of a house.
Oh, yeah.
Quietly destroying those invisible structures: truth, trust, integrity that, really hold our communities together. It's not just the obvious damage, it's the hidden foundations.
Termites in the beams. That's genuinely chilling, isn't it? It suggests something so insidious, often unseen until the damage is huge. And what I appreciate is that the article isn't just pointing fingers. It's a clear call to action. It notes it's designed to engage everyone, every citizen, leader, teacher, child, because, as it puts it, truth is the inheritance of all. Which really makes you stop and think, how can something so basic, so fundamentally good, be so hard to actually uphold? So let's maybe start by exploring that idea, the elusive nature of fraud. The article says fraud wears many masks, always adapting, always hiding. From your perspective, is there a particular disguise, maybe a strategy that you find most concerning or, surprisingly effective today?
Well, it's remarkably good at camouflage, isn't it? The article details these various disguises, and what's striking is how context-dependent they are. In business, maybe it's dressed up as creative accounting.
Right.
In politics, it's often hidden in policy loopholes. And even in our daily lives, it can whisper through what the article calls small compromises. It just adapts. It learns the language. And what's also highlighted is that fraud absolutely thrives in complexity. You think about legal jargon, intricate digital systems, or just, bureaucratic fog. The more convoluted something is, the easier it is for deceit to hide in there. It's like trying to find that needle in a haystack where the hay is deliberately confusing.
That makes a lot of sense. A master of disguise, really. And then you've got the psychological piece. The article points out how fraud manipulates perception. Sometimes victims don't even know they've been deceived. And what's fascinating is how perpetrators manage to, rationalize their actions, making them seem clever or necessary, maybe even noble in their own minds. It's a complete distortion.
Exactly. And the article makes this powerful point. Fraud isn't just a crime. It's a fundamental distortion of reality. Think about it for you, the listener. If the ground beneath your feet is shifting, if what you perceive as true isn't, it makes navigating the world incredibly disorienting. Reality itself gets warped.
So, if fraud thrives in this complexity, this distortion, the article suggests some clear countermeasures. Things like simplifying systems, clarifying language, and, crucially, cultivating moral clarity. It sounds almost too simple. But maybe if fraud uses complexity as its shield, then simplicity really is the sharpest weapon against it. Okay, so we've looked at how fraud hides, how it distorts reality, but what happens when we do catch it? The article then shifts to this critical question. When does justice feel like, a mirage? It makes that potent observation. Laws are only as strong as their execution. So what are the systemic weaknesses holding us back, even with the right laws?
Yeah, the article points to several sort of painful vulnerabilities that really chip away at that strength. Courts can be chronically underfunded. Investigators might find themselves under political pressure. And maybe most dishearteningly, it mentions how whistleblowers may be punished instead of protected.
Oof, yeah.
This creates a climate where the very mechanisms designed for justice are compromised, almost intentionally sometimes. And the societal message that sends is truly chilling. Fraud becomes low risk and high reward.
Right.
It's a perverse incentive structure. When the systems that should punish it are weak or compromised, it effectively screams that truth is optional, leads to massive public cynicism.
And the article points out that case studies abound. You see countries where anti-corruption agencies exist in name but not in action, which leads to justice being delayed, diluted, or denied. It's not just about having the laws, is it? It's whether they actually live and breathe.
A law unenforced is a lie told to the public. That's an incredibly stark quote from the article.
Yeah.
It speaks to a fundamental breach of trust, doesn't it? A promise broken. The public expects justice, but gets, well, a hollow shell.
That is stark. It really makes you pause, consider the implications for public trust. And the solutions the article offers seem to echo this. Demanding transparent governance, independent institutions, civic vigilance. It's about empowering people to hold systems accountable, to make that lie impossible. So beyond legal failures, the article digs even deeper into why societies might actually tolerate deception. It talks about fraud being a cultural symptom, not just isolated bad acts. What are the psychological dynamics here that make a whole society susceptible?
Well, one striking insight is how it explores these societal dynamics that sort of normalize fraud. It suggests that in some places, survival ethics override moral codes. Cunning gets admired more than character.
Right, the clever rogue.
Exactly. Yeah. Celebrating the con artist over the quiet builder. And then a general distrust in institutions leads to moral relativism. That's where people start thinking, look, if the system's rigged anyway, why should I play fair? It's a dangerous slope. Personal ethics become flexible. It also points to historical trauma, things like colonialism, war, systemic inequality, how these can deeply fracture a society's moral compass. When people feel betrayed repeatedly by leaders or the system, they just stop believing in the rules. And the article is very clear. When truth becomes negotiable, fraud becomes inevitable. The whole social contract just frays.
When people stop believing in justice, they start believing in shortcuts.
Yeah.
That line from the article,
Yeah.
it really makes you stop and reflect on what you see around you, doesn't it? It's a fundamental shift, a kind of surrender.
Precisely. And the remedies proposed for this deep cultural issue, are equally profound. Things like cultural storytelling, ethical education, and spiritual renewal. It's about actively rebuilding that moral fabric from the inside out, going way beyond just laws.
And this idea of a stolen future really amplifies the article's call to action. It gives a stark warning. Fraud is not just theft. It is theft of the future.
Yeah.
What exactly are these long-term consequences, the ones that ripple across generations?
Oh, the ripple effects are vast, and they're devastating, according to the article. If you zoom out a bit, it details how fraud leads to this systemic erosion of trust in governments, businesses, even within communities. It actively stalls innovation because, let's face it, fraud often rewards imitation, not genuine originality.
Sure.
You see cynical youth growing up thinking corruption is just normal, and it damages a nation's global reputation, impacting everything from credibility to investment.
It paints this picture of a society tolerating fraud, becoming hollow rich in appearance, poor in essence. Just a facade hiding internal rot.
There's a vivid description in the article that captures it perfectly. Fraud is not a shortcut. It's a detour into decay.
Wow.
It looks appealing short-term, quick gains, but ultimately it leads to a kind of societal ruin that's incredibly hard to reverse.
Which brings us to that crucial call to action for the next generation. The article really stresses teaching children that truth is strength, not weakness, and that integrity is legacy, not naivety. It's about reframing how we value honesty right from the start. So, okay, after dissecting the problem from all these angles, the article offers a proactive solution. Building an integral society, constructing it from the inside out. What are these foundational pillars it talks about for building truth and trust?
Right. So how do we actually build this better future? The article lays out 4 key pillars systematically. First is education. And this isn't just textbook ethics. It means teaching ethics as a living practice, something embedded in daily life. It's about fostering critical thinking and moral imagination, empowering young people not just to question, but to really reflect and act with integrity.
Makes sense.
Second pillar, transparency. This means practical things like open data, public accountability, media freedom. It means actively protecting whistleblowers and investigative journalism, those crucial truth tellers.
Absolutely.
And demanding that technology is used to illuminate, not obscure, making information accessible, not hidden away. Third is cultural storytelling. We need to shift the narratives we celebrate as a society, elevate the stories of honesty, courage, sacrifice, redefine success to actually include virtue, not just wealth or winning, and celebrate those who build, those who contribute, not just those who win, however they manage it.
I like that distinction.
And finally, the fourth pillar, spiritual renewal. This is about reconnecting truth to deeper, perhaps universal values like compassion, justice, unity, encouraging reflection, humility, service, building communities where being good is as important as doing well. It's recognizing that integrity often comes from an inner sense of purpose.
It's a really holistic approach, isn't it? All interconnected. And it leads to that evocative phrase from the article, integrity is not a rule, it's a rhythm of being. Not just following a checklist, but a consistent, almost subconscious way you approach everything. Honesty and principle just baked into your everyday actions. So as we bring this deep dive toward a close, we kind of circle back to the article's core message, which is actually quite simple. Fraud may be complex, but truth is simple.
And the vision it paints for society is really powerful. One where truth stands firm, trust flows freely, and ultimately, fraud becomes obsolete. That's quite an aspiration, redefining societal success itself.
It's clear this isn't framed as just a political or legal task. It's presented almost as a moral renaissance, a chance to leave behind not just wealth or systems, but real wisdom and souls. Not just what we built, but who we became.
Exactly. And the article leaves us with this truly powerful concluding image and maybe a question for you, the listener, to reflect on. Let us build not just structures, but sanctuaries where truth is honored, trust is earned, and the future is born clean. What might your part be in building such a sanctuary, maybe starting right there in your own community?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a topic that honestly goes so much deeper than just headlines or legal jargon. We're going to break down some incredible source material to understand fraud not just as a crime, but as a kind of illness in society. An illness that just might have a cure. So, let's dive in. Right off the bat, the source material hits us with this phrase, a spiritual erosion. Now, when we say spiritual, we're not talking about religion here. We're talking about the very spirit of a community, That invisible stuff, the trust, the truth, the sense of shared purpose that hold us all together. It's that feeling you get in your gut when you hear about a charity scam. That little voice that says the world just got a bit darker. That's the erosion. And this quote just lays it all out for us, doesn't it? It's asking us to look at fraud through 3 different lenses. First, as that erosion of our values. Second, as an open wound on our culture. And third, as a critical malfunction in the machine of society. This idea is going to be our roadmap for this whole explainer. All right, so let's dig into that first piece, the societal malfunction. Think of society like a house. Fraud isn't just some broken window you can easily patch up. No, it's more like a crack in the very foundation, undermining the whole building in ways you can't even see, at least not until it's way too late. I mean, what a perfect metaphor, right? Termites. They do their damage silently, completely out of sight, and that's exactly what fraud does. It just eats away at these invisible support beams of our world. The basic assumption that people are telling the truth, the trust we need to have in our institutions, and the integrity that's supposed to be the bedrock of our economy. So, if the damage is that bad, you got to ask, why is this stuff everywhere? Why is it so hard to stamp out? Well, the source suggests it's because fraud is an absolute master of disguise. You see, fraud is a total shapeshifter. It looks different depending on where you find it. In the corporate world, we give it a clean name like creative accounting. In politics, it hides in plain sight and we call it a policy loophole. And in our own lives, it might just be those small compromises. It even uses technology and red tape to create this bureaucratic fog where it's almost impossible to see what's really going on. Now, what's really interesting here is the psychological angle. This isn't just about stealing money or property. It's about fundamentally twisting our perception of reality. It creates this kind of parallel universe where lies are packaged as facts, and it can be so convincing that people don't even realize they're being deceived. And this whole illusion is able to thrive because of something the source calls the justice gap. See, on paper, we have all these tough laws against fraud. But in practice, well, the courts are often overwhelmed, investigators might face political heat, and the whistleblowers, the very people who try to sound the alarm, sometimes they're the ones who get punished, not projected. It creates this toxic environment where fraud feels like a low-risk, high-reward game. And this is what's so devastating. When the systems that are supposed to protect the truth don't do their job, it's like the system itself is lying to all of us. It's a lie that says, don't worry, justice will be done, when it won't. And that is a massive betrayal of public trust. And that betrayal, that erosion of trust, it creates these ripples that go way beyond the initial crime.
The source makes a powerful argument here that fraud is nothing less than a theft from the future. It's actively sabotaging the world that we're supposed to be leaving for our kids.
It's like a chain reaction. First, trust in major institutions just crumbles. Then, innovation stalls. I mean, why bother creating something new and brilliant when it's just more profitable to cheat? That cynicism then trickles down to the next generation, who start to see corruption as just normal. And eventually, all that internal rot damages a country's reputation on the global stage.
So here's the bottom line. Any benefit that seems to come from fraud is a complete illusion. It might look like a shortcut, but in reality, it's a major detour that leads an entire society straight into decay.
Okay, so that's the diagnosis. It's pretty grim. But this isn't all doom and gloom. This explainer is about a cure, remember? So let's get into the blueprint. How do we actually start to rebuild and create a society that's built on integrity?
The source lays out a 4-part plan. Step 1 is education, but not boring textbooks. Think more like a flight simulator for ethics, letting people practice making tough calls. Step 2 is radical transparency. Imagine public dashboards where you can see exactly where every tax dollar goes. Step 3 is about storytelling. We need to change the stories our culture tells, celebrating the whistleblowers and honest leaders, not just the richest folks. And finally, step 4 is what the source calls spiritual renewal, which really just means plugging our daily work back into core human values like compassion and justice.
And you see, the goal here isn't just about making more rules for people to follow. It's about cultivating a whole new rhythm of being, a state where honesty and integrity feel as natural and automatic as breathing. It's about who we are, not just the boxes we check.
And this all leads to one final powerful idea. This is about our legacy. It's about the kind of world we are actively choosing to build, right here and right now.
The vision is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It starts with a world where truth isn't some flimsy, negotiable concept. No, it's the bedrock. It stands firm.
And when you have that solid foundation of truth, what happens next? Trust. It can finally flow freely between people, communities, and institutions, like a clean, healthy river. And in a world like that, fraud doesn't just decline. It becomes obsolete. It becomes a relic, a fossil from a past where we just didn't know any better, because the conditions it needed to survive are gone. So, we end on this thought. The goal isn't just to build stronger laws or more efficient companies. It's to build sanctuaries, places that are truly safe, where truth is honored and our shared humanity can actually thrive. And so the challenge is left for all of us to think about. How will you help build that future?